Pep's Man City are unstoppable.
Powers his way through, hits a shot in the net!
It doesn't feel like a proper Premier League season unless you see City coming for their throne.
They're absolutely in this title race. We never said they weren't, but we've worried about their credentials as to whether they can push Arsenal and indeed overtake them.
Even at their lowest point, Pep never panicked. He knew his team would rise again.
We will be there. If they follow me, we will be there. I have to improve.
What makes this City team so interesting is how they're winning. Sure, they're dominating teams, but not the same way as before. City used to kill you with 1,000 passes. Now they play with so much flair. They dominate you, but they also try and embarrass you. They're hungry again, and they're scoring for fun.
Spirit is there. They didn't have that last season. The spirit, the aggression, and the hunger, all these attributes that they need. That is not about the highlights. It's not about the big, how good action this way. No, there are something come from inside that we have it.
And I mean, the attack, it's insane. Haaland, Cherki, Foden. Football always changes, and Pep knows that better than anyone. And once again, he's adapted before everyone else. When Pep was unveiled as Manchester City's manager in July of 2016, he admitted right away that he would need time to understand the Premier League. There were doubts about whether Guardiola's possession-heavy style would work in England, and those doubts reached their peak in December of that year, when City lost 4-2 to Leicester. After that game, Pep was asked why his team hadn't won a single tackle in the first 35 minutes.
Yeah, the second balls is a concept. It's typical here in England when they use a lot about the tackles. So I'm not a coach for the tackles. So I don't train the tackles. Yeah, it's another aspect of the football, but at the end, we're not going to win or lose for the tackles.
Second balls are still a huge part of English football now, and the fact that City continued to thrive shows just how much Pep has adapted over time. I mean, a few seasons ago, Pep kept talking about the need for proper defenders. He wanted strength and physicality at fullback, and that approach played a big role in City winning the treble. But that wasn't always the case. In fact, back in 2017, Pep's main focus was improving City with the ball. That led to the arrivals of Laporte, Mendy, Kyle Walker, Bernardo Silva, and Ederson. Guardiola, who had previously used inverted wingers, changed things by playing a left-footed Leroy Sané on the left and a right-footed Raheem Sterling on the right. Their pace allowed them to run in behind, get shots away, cross, or cut the ball back for Sergio Aguero. Delph was used at left back, even though he was a midfielder, which was the inverse of what Guardiola had done with Philipp Lahm at Bayern. With Delph there, it changed how City build up from the back. The peak of Guardiola's first Premier League title came in October of 2017 with a 7-2 home win over Stoke City. Of course, as most of you know, Stoke are a team that have been long seen as the symbol of English football's physical style. So to see Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva completely controlling the game as these free eights was phenomenal. De Bruyne created a lovely goal for Sané after driving forward from right back. That system worked again in the 2018-2019 title win. However, injuries across the squad in the next season broke City's rhythm. Their pressing fell apart, huge spaces opened up in midfield, and City became very vulnerable on the counter. Early in the next season, similar issues appeared again. Guardiola responded by combining two ideas: free number 8s and inverted fullbacks. The left back would step into midfield and the right back would tuck inside, and City would form a back three. This helped them create strong passing triangles in central areas. David Silva thrived in this setup near the end of his City career. Against Newcastle in July of 2020, he made a late run down the left channel to assist Gabriel Jesus. De Bruyne stayed in the right half space, while Joao Cancelo operated inside the midfield from left back. This tweak also gave City better protection when they lost the ball. The protection became even stronger with Rodri's rise and Ruben Dias's arrival from Benfica, two players comfortable defending larger spaces. They both played a very key role in City's 2020-2021 title win. Higher up the pitch, Pep returned to using a false 9 as Aguero's influence faded. De Bruyne, Phil Foden, Ilkay Gundogan, Raheem Sterling, Mahrez, and Jesus all played the role at different times. The aim was to pull defenders out of position and keep City compact, which made their counter press stronger than ever. The 2-1 away win at Real Madrid in February of 2020 is a great example of this. Bernardo Silva dropped into the left back during the build-up. De Bruyne worked between the lines, and Jesus and Mahrez made inside-out runs between defenders. Unfortunately, the system failed in the 2021 Champions League final. Guardiola used two false 9s, De Bruyne and Foden, but didn't play with a natural holding midfielder. Chelsea, under Thomas Tuchel, stayed disciplined, defended the transition well, and won 1-0. Then Haaland's arrival in 2022 forced another change. At first, Pep returned to the ideas he had used at Bayern. Like Robert Lewandowski, Haaland could run in behind and pin the center backs. Grealish and Mahrez held the ball wide, giving midfielders time to arrive into the spaces that Haaland's movement created. Haaland's goals drove City to the treble in the 2022-2023 season, but without an extra midfielder floating high up the pitch, City could at times become predictable, especially if Haaland wasn't scoring. Guardiola's solution to this was addition by subtraction. He pushed a center back, often John Stones, into midfield alongside the holding midfielder. So when Rodri missed most of the 2024-2025 season with an ACL injury, City became vulnerable again. Guardiola responded by using center backs in wider positions to add security in the build-up and in rest defense. A good example of this came in the 2-2 draw with Monaco in October. Stones, listed as a right back, moved inside to act as a second holding midfielder. Guardiola's latest adjustments have been signing more ball carriers like Jeremy Doku, Savinho, and Reinders. He also shifted away from Ederson's short build-up style by bringing in Gianluigi Donnarumma, whose long passing helped City bypass presses and compete for the second, third, and even fourth balls, something that Pep talked about as far back as 2016. Both moves reflect the modern Premier League, where width, physicality, and direct play often matter more than neat passing in tight spaces. It's been nearly 2 decades in management for Pep, and there are still challenges that he has to deal with. Yet every time, he's found a new way to adapt. Like I said a few seasons ago, Pep talked about the need for proper defenders. He wanted strength and physicality at fullback. That's why he started playing center backs there, and that approach helped Manchester City win the treble. Now, with City towards the top of the Premier League and the Champions League table, Pep has gone in the opposite direction. Now, some critics still say that Pep overthinks things, but this time he's made a bold shift that's paying off. You see, his 1000th game as a manager ended in a 3-0 win over Liverpool, and it was another example of how he's always tweaking and changing things. Over the last 2 summers, City have added more players who can carry the ball. That's because the Premier League has become more physical and more focused on man-to-man pressing, so City try and create as many 1v1 situations as possible for their wingers. Against Liverpool, as Michael Cox pointed out in The Athletic, Pep used Jeremy Doku in more central areas to overload the midfield. At the same time, the fullbacks, Nico O'Reilly and Matheus Nunes, stayed wide to stretch the pitch. When asked by ESPN in 2024 why he keeps changing his ideas, Pep gave a very honest answer. Because otherwise I get bored, he said. Doing the same thing for 8 years would be very boring. And it makes sense, because when he uses something that works, opponents watch him and find ways to stop it. So when the opposition reacts, Pep has to react again. The other reason, of course, is that Pep is adapting to the players that he has, and using them in the best way that they can play. This constant need to change and evolve is exactly why Pep is considered one of, if not the greatest manager football has ever seen. And he's done it again. Instead of using traditional defenders, he's using Nunes and Nico O'Reilly, 2 players who started out as central midfielders, as his fullbacks.
He has a big presence. Normally he's attacking midfielder. He's a number 10, right to the box really well, have a sense of goal. But for the problems that we have, and he adapts really well with the fullback, I think, and playing with a holding midfielder. And is another threat, you know, for our set pieces, because we are not a tall team, and he helps us. And yeah, he played really good with the ball, without the ball.
Pep believes that being open-minded is the biggest reason that Nico O'Reilly and Nunes have adapted so quickly. The two have been key to City switching into a 4-3-2-1 shape, which back when I played FIFA, people would call the Christmas tree. Earlier in the season, Pep used a 4-1-4-1, sometimes switching to a 4-2-3-1. With that system, City relied more on traditional wingers. Recently though, Phil Foden has looked refreshed, while City also brought in Ryan Cherki, so now they have 2 attacking midfielders behind Haaland. Before that, Pep found a way to tweak Doku's role, bringing him inside to overload the midfield without letting him drift wide again. When Doku moves out wide, it creates space for Nico O'Reilly to underlap or drift inside. In a game against Sunderland's 5-4-1, O'Reilly and Nunes both stepped into the attacking midfield roles, which opened up space for switches to Doku. Another moment came away at Newcastle. Gianluigi Donnarumma played a sharp pass through the press. City had 3 midfielders deep, with O'Reilly and Nunes providing width. So when Newcastle pressed man for man, Doku dropped inside, turned quickly, and drove City into the final third. Against Fulham in a 5-4 win, City created a triangle down the left with Doku, Foden, and O'Reilly. Fulham were sitting in a compact 4-4-2, but O'Reilly passed the ball into Foden and then made an underlapping run between the 2 Fulham players. The run was mainly a decoy. Harry Wilson didn't track O'Reilly, which pinned Tete back and gave Doku space to cross with his weaker foot. Doku in particular this season has improved a lot when it comes to shooting and creating. City have also focused heavily on back post overloads. In that same game against Fulham, Bernardo Silva and Haaland found themselves 2v1 against Ryan Sessegnon. Doku picked out Haaland, who finished it first time past Leno. This kind of goal has become typical for City. They lead the league in cutback goals and assists for first time finishes. O'Reilly and Doku are City's most common passing links in the final third this season. Then on the other side, Bernardo and Nunez rank second. City are also overloading central areas in their own half. Often Nico Gonzalez drops between the center backs to stretch the pitch and create space further forward. This pattern was consistently visible in City's 3-1 win over Bournemouth. Gvardiol was wide on the left, Nico Gonzalez dropped in besides Ruben Dias, and Bernardo pulled wide. With Bournemouth's midfield narrow, O'Reilly's positioning was crucial. He occupied Alex Scott, giving City a 4v3 advantage in midfield and allowing Doku to move inside. That opened up a pass for Nico Gonzalez to Foden. Foden then set it to Cherki, who clipped a ball in behind for Haaland. Haaland ran through, rounded the keeper, and scored. The space came from a chain reaction in midfield. Marco Senesi stepped out to press Foden, leaving Haaland free. At the same time, Truffert stayed wide because he was worried about Nunez. City are using the wings more than in previous seasons. Their share of touches in central areas of the attacking half is now the lowest in the league. Another example came in the 2-1 loss at Newcastle, where Doku played a diagonal inside pass to O'Reilly's underlapping run, leading to a big chance. Pep actually tested the system during the Club World Cup in the summer, using different players like Savinho and Aid Nouri. After the win away at Crystal Palace, Pep said that Nunez is becoming an incredible fullback and highlighted how important his crossing has been. It was Nunez's whipped cross that found Haaland to open the scoring in that match. Nico O'Reilly also played a role by holding the back post, helping City keep a 4v3 advantage. The same thing happened against Liverpool, where Nunez crossed for Haaland after being given space. City are crossing less often, but more patiently than ever under Pep. In fact, the Nunez to Haaland combo has become a fantastic one. Just as important is how Nunez links up with the play. Against Sunderland, he combined with Bernardo and Cherki before making a third man run that broke open a low block. He also helped City score their fastest Premier League goal in 6 years against Leeds. When Nico Gonzalez anchoring the midfield, Gvardiol switched the play to Nunez. A quick 1-2 followed, and Nunez found the late running Foden for the finish. At times, Nunez even drops into a back three during the build-up, allowing Nico O'Reilly to push higher and support Doku. All of these tactical adjustments are clicking, and that's why City are scoring so many goals in so many different games. They just look different. They're not as dominant on the ball or as aggressive in their pressing, but they're more dangerous from corners, they dribble more, and are deadly on the counter. Since September, not many teams have won more points than City, and they are also the top scorers in that time. And now their goals are being shared around more than before. They are no longer relying solely on Haaland. Pep has found his formula, at least for now. But of course, there's going to be more changes coming as the year goes by. The consistency of Nico O'Reilly and Nunez at fullback has been huge. It's pretty much been Pep's most settled fullback pairing since the days of Kyle Walker and Zinchenko in 2019. The biggest reason that everyone looks good again is because Pep changed his style. He has always adapted and refined his tactics to stay at the top, and he's done it again. He's moved away from strict positional rules to something more fluid. Before, he would divide the pitch into 6 horizontal rows and 5 vertical columns. Then he made sure that no more than 3 players are standing in the same row and no more than 2 are standing in the same column. That's been the base of Pep's coaching forever. It's why his teams always look so fluid, but they never lose their structure. It's also why he says formations don't really matter. The rules stay the same whether he's in a 4-3-3 or a 3-2-4-1. His players just know where to not stand. But now that Pep has managed as many games as Bonnie Blue has smashed dudes, things are changing. If you look at City's recent games, those old rules seem to have gone out the window. Against Bournemouth, his team played in a way that you would never expect from a Guardiola side. Instead of being spread out, they had 3 or 4 players packed tightly together in the middle. His idea was to pull the defenders out of position and open up space for Haaland to run him behind. For Haaland's first goal, City's front 6 were all super close together in the middle. Nico Gonzalez chipped it, Cherki headed it down, and Haaland finished. For the second goal, it was almost identical. Everyone crowded in the center, a couple of few slick passes, and the Norwegian robot was through again. Now you might say, Ped, this isn't new. His team have always played close together to play these quick short passes. Yes, but here's the twist. One of the players who was drifting inside was Jeremy Doku. On paper, he's the most traditional winger City have. A player who's fast, loves to dribble, and thrives in 1v1 situations. But in this new system, Pep uses him like a hybrid. He's part winger, part attacking midfielder. At times, Doku pops up right in the middle of the pitch, around the center circle, which confused the Liverpool midfielders. They didn't know whether to press him or stay in position. Then seconds later, he'd be out wide again, burning past defenders. He wasn't just drifting inwards, he was kind of going everywhere. Sometimes he'd drag defenders across the pitch, sometimes he'd make diagonal runs into the box. Then other times he would just stay tight to the touchline. That movement created space for Haaland and the midfielders to do their damage. And the funny thing is that Doku isn't your typical wide open space winger like Leroy Sané or Raheem Sterling. His real strength isn't his acceleration over short distances. He's lightning quick over 5 yards, which makes him so deadly in tight spaces. That's why Pep has given him the freedom to play inside. That way defenders can't get set. Sure, sometimes he gets into great areas and his final pass isn't always perfect. I mean, he's not Messi, but when he's playing centrally, he has more options around him. And when he gets it right, like when he slipped Foden in behind, he's so dangerous. The stats back it up too. Against Liverpool, Doku became the first Premier League player since Eden Hazard in 2019 to score, win 10 plus duels, complete 7 plus dribbles, create 3 plus chances, and have 3 plus shots on target all in one game. Basically, he did everything. Even his goal showed how much freer he is. Instead of staying wide, he drifted inside, got a pass from Nico O'Reilly, and curled it in beautifully.
Doku gets the ball now. Doku can attack Konate in the position to shoot. Scores! Jeremy Doku! What a fabulous strike!
When Pep subbed him off near the end, it was probably so the crowd could give him the applause he deserved. Doku's the kind of player who really feeds on confidence, and you could see how happy he was when he got the man of the match. He's such a cutie pie. But really, this isn't just about Doku. It's about what he represents, which is a new version of Pep ball. A version that's more flexible, more chaotic, and perhaps more dangerous than ever. When someone asked him about Jeremy Doku's positioning, he smiled and said, "I'm a genius, my friend."
Hi Pep, we saw Jeremy inside a lot in the first half. How did you think he did, and how did it make the team?
I'm a genius. Tactics, my friend.
Now, it might have sounded cocky, but to anybody with a brain, it's obvious Pep was joking. But he really might be a genius, because he constantly finds new ways to help his players solve problems on the pitch.
I said today I get the freedom to go outside inside. So I said, Jeremy, you can go inside, you feel it, go outside when you feel it. When you go outside, Nico Phil can play.
This season, City's midfield passing combination has been incredible. They've been cutting through defensive lines like butter with these quick, clever passes. Doku's become more comfortable in tight spaces, and O'Reilly's profile fits perfectly because he helps overload the middle of the pitch. In the Manchester derby, for example, Doku drifted inside from the left, creating a 2 versus 1 situation. That moment really confused the United midfielder, and after a few quick passes through Rodri and Foden, City opened up space for Reinders to run in and shoot. A similar thing happened against Bournemouth. On paper, Doku and Cherki were wingers, Doku on the left, Cherki on the right. But on the actual pitch, both were tucking inside, crowding the midfield. That movement pulled Bournemouth's defensive block apart. Every time City circulated the ball, players like Doku and Foden would move in opposite directions, forcing defenders to make tough choices. Who do you follow and who do you leave open? At one point, Bournemouth's David Brooks was stuck deciding between marking Doku or Foden. The key to all of this is speed. The passes come so quickly that defenders can't react. Against Burnley, Doku drifted inside, played a quick 1-2 with Nico, and found Foden between the lines before Burnley's midfielders even realized what happened. Within seconds, the ball had moved to the right side and ended up in the net. It's the same pattern again and again. Short, fast passing, players rotating positions, and wingers moving inside to open up lanes for runners. Against Everton, Doku and O'Reilly perfectly timed their movements. Doku went narrow, O'Reilly pushed further forward. Foden dropped into the pocket, and just like that, O'Reilly was in behind to cross for Haaland's header. This guy is scoring a lot of goals this season, so you better celebrate them by wearing a Man City jersey. Just go to buygamejerseys.com and use code PedTalks at checkout. Pep has always believed that tactics depend on the players you have.
I want to be clear. Always I have some principles and fundamentals that not change much. But after, I assure you, I adapt to the players I have.
So when Pep said he's a genius, he was joking, but the truth is, he kind of is. What we're seeing this season is Guardiola at his best, adapting his tactics to the players, teaching them how to move as one, and turning simple passes into unstoppable attacks. Now, this City team is not prime City. It's not the treble-winning side or even the 2024 side, but it has all the ingredients to be a very dominant team. Many of the players are young, so they're only going to get better. With all the focus being on Arsenal and Liverpool, don't forget about Pep's men. To see just how good of a manager Pep is, you have to watch this video right here.